My name is Hunter Lovins. I am the president of Natural Capitalism Solutions. We and a whole host of other folk are honored to welcome you to what is badged as the first annual Regenerative Futures Summit. And I say badged as because this is not exactly the first. This is part of an ongoing process, series, weird microphones, in between the two. Artem, you might want to turn down the gain a little bit. You need it for the recording. We'll just try and make it work. This began, I suppose, officially or unofficially, what, Bob, 5 years ago when the King of Bhutan invited a group of us to come to Bhutan, well, first of all to the UN, and thence to Bhutan, to see if we could take Bhutan's concept of gross national happiness and use that as the basis of international development policy. Like, wow, that sounded like a good idea. So Bob, Ida, Stuart, you guys want to come up? These are three of the folk who were part of making all of that happen. Out of that, we created a little organization called Alliance for Sustainability and Prosperity, ASAP. Cool, huh? And ASAP is a Bob and Ida are now from Australia, Stuart's from the UK. We had, how many nationalities do we have?
Between us?
The whole crew. Well, no, three here.
3 here for about 7, 8.
7, 8 nationalities as part of ASAP. Then I ran into Dr. Michael Pearson. Michael, where are you at? Come on up. Michael is German, so another nationality added. Professor at Fordham. Michael and I started talking about how can we embed this stuff into universities? How can we spread it more broadly? Michael is the founder of a thing called the Humanistic Management Network. How many nations in yours?
I don't know, there's 7,000 people.
7,000 people, 30-odd, I think, at least 30-odd. Universities around. Sandra, where are you at? Come on up. Sandra Waddock from Boston College is part of Michael's network, also part of Leading for Wellbeing. Michael was working with OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. They've got, what, 37 countries? Member countries. This is the Rich Countries Club. So a group of us went off to OECD this spring and got them actually to agree to start taking the concept of human well-being as an alternative to gross national product. Kind of amazing, yeah? This owes to work that Bob and Ida have been doing of alternatives to GDP, what's wrong with GDP, and owes back to the work we were doing with the King of Bhutan. Chris, come on up. And Donna.
Eventually, we have the whole room.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, eventually we are going to have the whole room, and I'll explain that to you in a minute. We had a summit last May at Fordham University, Donna Morton, Dr. Chris Laszlo, and what did we have, 80-odd people. We then had another meeting in Tübingen, Germany at the Institute for Global Ethics, another 80-odd people, 16 countries. So you are now part of the family. Welcome to Regenerative Futures, Alliance for Sustainability and Prosperity, Leading for Wellbeing Institute, or Humanistic Management Institute. And at one point, Chris and I got in a fight in Paris over who's running this thing. And I said, boys, we're arguing over who's captain of a rowboat. Nobody's running it. I'm sure not running it. You guys are running it. And the goal for the next 3 days, 2.5 days, is to bring coherence to this network of networks, to create coherence in a movement that already exists. Each of you are part of some other organization, and we need all of us. All of us are smarter than, stronger than, better than any of us. And that's what it's going to take. As we stand at the edge of a cliff, humanity could go away. Dr. Peter Turchin, University of Connecticut, humanity collapses within 10 years. These quotes that have been going around, Dr. Sylvia Earle, what we do in the next 10 years matters more than what humanity does in the next 10,000. We're up against it. Who was it? Winston Churchill said Americans can be counted on to do the right thing when they've exhausted all alternatives. We're getting kind of close. So, Chris, you want to tell us about the next in the series?
Sure. Thank you, Hunter. And I just want to say welcome to all of you. I think that the next few days are going to be a terrific opportunity for all of us to learn a emerging new narrative for business and society. But as I was reflecting on it, it's not just an opportunity to learn about this new narrative. I think in this process of telling and retelling this, we're actually recreating the world. And in that sense, what we do here and what we do after this conference in terms of continuing to share this narrative does shape the future. I just want to invite all of you to also consider coming to the fourth Global Forum for Business as an Agent of World Benefit. It's going to be in Cleveland, June 12 to 14. So next month, it's coming up soon. And really, we should look at all of these events together as a series of conversations, design efforts that amplify this new narrative in the world and that fundamentally are starting to shift the conversation about who we are as human beings and what is the role of business in society. Is it just to make profits and do less harm, or is it in fact an institution that's here to create prosperity for all, not just certain members of our government and related friends? And is it also an institution that's there to contribute to regeneration, a regenerative natural environment, and increasing human well-being? So again, welcome. And I would like to thank Hunter and all of you here for your leadership in this. And if you are interested in the Global Forum, there's also a little flyer outside on the table of books that describes it in more detail. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. I'll be there in June. Michael will be there. A number of us will be there. Urge you strongly to consider coming to the next in the series. And inshallah, we'll be back here in a year, do it all over again. There are a lot of people who were responsible for making this happen. In particular, I want to thank KGNU. This is Boulder's radio station. Without KGNU, the world wouldn't be knowing what it is that we're doing here. They have a booth right out front. Really urge you to get a hold of them. They broadcast Boulder, Denver, Nederland, Fort Collins, and online at kgnu.org and afterfm.com. Get involved, become a sponsor. In this world, a lot of us are used to stuff for free. The radio comes to us for free. A lot of the great news services come to us for free. Let's start chipping in for those services that we depend on, yeah? So everybody go make a donation to KGNU. Thank them for being here. A lot of sponsors. About 2 weeks ago, we were looking at losing about $75,000 on this event. About a week ago, we were looking at losing $25,000. As of today, at least on paper, I think we're going to break even and maybe a little better. These events like this are exercises in faith. And so I'm grateful to all of you that you showed up. Thank you very much. In particular, I want to thank my staff, some of whom may be outside. Megan Altman has been responsible throughout all of this for holding it all together. Megan, you here? Thank Megan when you see her outside. Isabel Nessie, who worked with Megan. Isabel, you in here? They're all out working. AJ, you're at least here in the back of the room. AJ Grossenbaum. Come on in, guys. Isabel, get in here. Grab Megan. Andrew Strait. Jeff Hohensee. Without the natural capitalists, this meeting would not have happened. And then a lot of other people came together to help. Had a chat with my friend Alex Bogusky. Alex, you here? Alex is going to pop up at some point. Who introduced us to Mark Eckert, who is standing over here. Mark is going to be our facilitator for the run of this. Now, why do we need a facilitator at a conference? Conferences, you come, you sit, we talk. This is not your grandma's conference. There are kind of two kinds of conferences now. They're the pay-to-play, where anybody who's standing on the podium has put in $10,000 to grab that spot. Not like that here. Nobody paid to come here. The other is you just have eminent people who lecture at you. You go, oh, that's very interesting. You go away and then nothing happens. This is not going to be like this. You're the conference. We're going to set the frame today. We will have on the podium people who have created the frameworks that we're now using when we talk about regenerative economy, about donut economics, about ecological economics. Stuart here was the founder for 20 years, ran New Economics Foundation. The word new economics was framed here. Throughout the rest of the 2 days, we'll have people coming up doing panels that are helping to frame the conversation, but the guts of this conference is you working. We have working groups. The working groups are structured around 3 different contact areas. One is some work that Michael, Chris, those of us in Leading for Wellbeing did last spring and at the May meeting. It's called the Meadows Memorandum. You should all have a copy of it. There are copies out front if you don't. This came out, and Stuart will talk a bit more later about how the Powell Memorandum came to be. If you haven't read the Powell Memorandum, go online, download it and read it, and prepare to be chilled, because it'll show you how we got into the trouble we're in now. It was very deliberately laid out by one man, executed by some people with a lot of money. And when Mr. Trump walked into the Oval Office, remember that deer in headlights look on his face, like, shit, I won. He was handed a playbook written by the Heritage Foundation, one of those institutions created after the Powell Memorandum. These guys are very powerful. They have an agenda, and it, I submit, is the agenda that is bringing humanity to the edge of a cliff. We believe a finer future is possible. And so John Fullerton, whom I'll call up next, Stuart Wallace, Anders Wigman from Club of Rome, Graham Maxton, are in the process of finishing a book called A Finer Future, in which we're going to describe how it is that humanity can avoid total system collapse. The bad news is not inherent. We can do better than that, and that's why you're here. So we have Jeff. How many working groups, Jeff? 20 working groups. Please sign up for one if you haven't already. Some of them are drawn from the Meadows Memorandum, and you'll be taking the work that we've done, deciding if you think it makes sense, rewriting it if it doesn't. Another 10 are projects that some of you have going on. One of them is, how do we build this network of networks, movement of movements? How do we make sure that what we do here in the next 2.5 days doesn't die then? You in? Yes. Let's go. Thank you, guys. Mark. I'm going to ask Mark to describe a little bit about the next couple of days, and then ask John up.
Is this on? A little bit. Well, hello, everyone. It's nice to meet you. And thank you for the introduction, Hunter. But I have to say that I've never been introduced as a facilitator in common. Oh, this isn't on? I'm getting crazy hands from the back. How about it?
Apologize.
Thank you very much.
This auditorium has has just been redone, and we're working some bugs out.
That's the start.
Speaker here and there, so you
Is this like the perfect zone? Okay. So as I was saying, I've been introduced as a facilitator many different ways, but never within the context of, this is not your grandmother's conference. You didn't get that. But anyways, it's really a pleasure, and I'm excited to spend the next 3 days with you. I'm just going to kind of go over very quickly our thoughts and our ideas behind the process part of our time together. So today is mainly going to be focused on building relationships and deepening understanding of the subject matter. So there's going to be a number of talks, there'll be panel discussions, and then from there we're going to be breaking out into small groups, probably 2 rows gathering together for 30-minute conversation. So we're going to do 4 cycles of that. And at the end of the day, we'll synthesize what we discussed and the key concepts that we kind of surfaced as a result of those discussion groups. Then on days 2 and 3, we're going to actually roll up our sleeves and we're going to design and build. As Hunter mentioned, there's already some groups that have kind of formed. Are going to be working on some specifics to the memorandums. Other groups will be taking form, and then there'll be probably some offshoots, something that kind of pops up in the middle of the moment, and a group will form around that. So I don't want to take a whole lot of time going into the nuts and bolts. I just want to say welcome and thank you for having me, and I look forward to the next 3 days. Thank you.
I said there are a lot of folk that made this possible. They include organizations like B-Lab. Kim Kupinis will be speaking tomorrow, the next day. Savory Institute. Kim, you here? Hey, Kim! These guys are reinventing business. Savory Institute, they're reinventing agriculture. Dan, you're here? Trey's here. Number of folk from Savory are here. Humanistic Management Network, Michael, Sandra, I've already mentioned. Futera, Freya's going to come in on Wednesday, one of the best marketers around. Fordham University, Michael's outfit. American Sustainable Business Council, Richard, you here? Richard Idland from ASCB. Case Western, that's Chris. Fowler Center for Business as an Agent of World Benefit. Leading for Wellbeing. Institute for the Built Environment. Josie is around here somewhere. Over here. Josie Platt, who will also be speaking. Ethical Markets Media. This is Hazel Henderson's outfit. And I want to give a nod to Hazel. A lot of people have forgotten. Much of what we talk about owes back to people like Bucky Fuller, E.F. Schumacher, Hazel Henderson. Hazel's still alive. So honors to Hazel. American Renewable Energy Day. Chip, you here? Chip Cummins will be with us shortly. American Renewable Energy Institute. It wouldn't have been possible without the Alliance for Sustainable Colorado, Sustainability Innovation Lab. Oh, and Natural Capitalism. Natural Capitalism Solutions. I'll tell you some more about our other sponsors. They're on the signage out front. Please thank them. They're why we have wine and beer for the reception tonight, and meals and snacks and coffee and tea and all kinds of great things like that. So please thank our sponsors. Without them, none of this would be possible. With that, it is my... This thing doesn't like it when I yell. Hello. It is my great pleasure to introduce... Who's that? You. No. Thank you, but really I'm the least of it. My staff really has done it all. I am deeply honored to introduce my friend John Fullerton. When we were doing the stuff with Bhutan, the king of Bhutan came up to me and said, "Hunter, your job is to reinvent the global economy." Like, me? So I went around asking everybody I knew who was smarter than me. Asked a man named Rick Stuckey, who was teaching finance at the Bard MBA where I teach. Rick said, yeah, I'll help, but you don't want to talk to me, you want to talk to John Fullerton. John was 18 years at JP Morgan, helped invent their derivatives practice, managed that, private equity, commodities from Tokyo to London to Wall Street. In 2001, he walked away. Just said, there is something rotten here. And walked away to read for 6 years. His wife said he was clinically depressed. He said, I may have been. If he'd have done that in an academic context, he'd have had a couple PhDs. And then he started writing. And he read Bookie, read E.F. Schumacher, read Natural Capitalism, read Herman Daly. And then he started writing. Highly recommend you go to capitalinstitute.org and download 1, his paper, Regenerative Capitalism, and 2, subscribe to his blog. It's when John and I met, we literally walked into each other at a Savory Institute meeting here in Boulder. I'd been looking for him and hadn't quite got around to finding him. And he walked up, said, hi, my name's John Fullerton. Rick Stuckey said we should talk. Like, well, howdy. So we started talking and have been working together ever since. He sent me a draft of Regenerative Capitalism. I read it on a trip to Germany and wrote him back and said, wow. Said, this is the best I've seen in 40-odd years of looking. So when we picked the name for this summit, it had to be regenerative. And this, I think, is, if you get nothing else out of these days, and you're going to get a lot, if you get nothing else, please try to grasp these concepts of what it means to be regenerative.